You are listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. My name is Tyler, and I am joined by my two friends, Amanda and Stephanie. We are a trio of coaches coming together to explore life's biggest topics. Each episode, we hold true to our name, Come As You Are, by showing up and going live. Whatever we bring to the table that week is what we talk about. No scripts, no planning, just real and raw conversations. And audience participation is always encouraged. Our mission is to create a space where vulnerability and authenticity take center stage, and we believe in the power of deep conversations and soulful connections. So welcome to the show. We're happy that you're here, and we invite you now to just sit back, relax, and enjoy today's conversation. Hi, friends.
Hi, here we are.
I was trying to fix I got a notification that we weren't streaming on Facebook, and so I was frantically trying to fix that.
I saw it too. It was so long. Like the notification was like, oh my gosh.
It's like, what's happening? Well, okay. We had a massive, like, AT&T, which is a cell phone provider here in the States, like, had a massive outage yesterday, like, across the country. It was, like, very scary. I have T-Mobile, so it didn't bother me at all. But, you know, it was like, wow, what happens when, like, technology goes down and, like, we're so dependent on it?
Yeah, we had something similar happen, I want to say now probably a year ago, where one of the main providers went down. Unfortunately, I was with that provider. And it was so weird because I was trying to figure out, why isn't my phone working? And then even trying to get onto the internet, because at least, okay, if my phone's not working, then maybe my internet will work. Nothing was working. And it was just chaos, because even going to the grocery store, even like my clients, I couldn't even contact them to let them know, hey, I'm not available. I can't get on the internet, because I couldn't get on the internet to let them know. And so just realized how dependent we become on the internet. And it was so bad that actually, because normally if technology isn't functioning right, you can still call emergency services like 911. Even that was down if you were on that provider. So it was really crazy, like what had happened. And I remember, just so that I could contact people, oh my gosh, so I could contact people, I went to every like spot that I knew in my area that had Wi-Fi. And I went to each place hoping like one place wouldn't be with that provider, but a lot of them were. And so even their debit machines weren't working. Like it was crazy. It was crazy. And it really highlighted, and it was almost, they were down for almost an entire day. And so it really highlighted how dependent we are in technology. And I think people really realized, wow, like how much do we really depend on Wi-Fi just to do like normal things, or what seems normal, whatever that word means.
Normal is a strong word here, right? Normal is always a strong word. No, I really get it. Like it makes you feel, okay, I need to now go to the bank and get some cash, and then I can go to the like farmer's market and buy my stuff with like cash.
That's so many places don't even take cash anymore. Everything's cashless.
Right. Yeah. Bananas.
Yeah, what happens when the whole system crashes?
Right?
Like, and we're no longer able to connect to the internet, to get into our bank accounts. Like that's a scary thought.
Yeah. And I remember, I think it was last year, where a major social media platform, or I don't know, I think there was something, it was definitely affecting, I don't know, I don't want to name names and like make up stories, but I know that there was at least 2 social media platforms that I was using that you couldn't get on for like half a day, like nothing was working. And then overnight, I think they fixed it. So it was like everyone where do you go? What do you do? Right? Like it's like that's your way of connecting with people. And it's an interesting thought. Like, I mean, humanity made it so many thousands of years without all that technology, and now that we have it, we're quite dependent on it, right? And yeah, I guess it's I don't know if you really need a backup plan, but it's definitely worth exploring. Okay, why are we freaking out when we don't have it? Like, what's behind that, right? I don't think it's bad to make use of it. It's just when we're so depending on it and we're like, oh my God, our whole world kind of falls apart. And I don't mean, for example, being able to reach out client. That's not what I mean. But when our security is so dependent on it, like, I think that's maybe something worth like exploring for yourself. Like, okay, what's that icky feeling? Why does it feel like, oh my gosh, I couldn't live without the internet? I don't know. And I think that, me including, I don't admit how much I'm actually depending on it and how much I would suffer if I didn't have it. Like, I'm one of those people, I say, oh no, I'm fine. Like, send me to the mountains for a couple of days. I would be good. But would I? I don't think so.
I had so I'm in Miami right now. I'm actually at a random Starbucks, like live with y'all, which is so out of my comfort zone. I'm just going to be completely transparent with that. Like, I feel like, oh my God, are people looking at me? What's happening? Anyway, totally taking this imperfect action today because I just coming back I was at a 2-day workshop on speaking and how to land stages to grow your business and things like that. And it was a great workshop. I learned so much from it. And I got done and I got back to my hotel room, and like overnight I put together a brand new webinar, and like just all of the creativity was flowing. But I realized, I was like, that's the first time that I've been in that type of room there was like 150 people who attended this workshop, and we were all networking. And I was like, I really miss the human to human connection that comes with like being in a space with somebody. And I was even thinking, I was like, again, we've talked about this before, where the three of us, we've never met in person yet. And like, we spend so much of our time in Zoom rooms and streaming and, virtually. And it was a weird sensation to be back live, like in a room. And I sat next to people, and I would turn and I would shake their hands, and we would exchange information, and we would share lunch together, and things like that. And I was like, oh my God, my heart really needs this. My heart really needed the human connection again. And I feel very fulfilled coming out of this workshop. Not just because I got a ton of great information and I learned, but because I got to connect with humans. And I wasn't on my phone all day long. I wasn't, I was there. There was an energy about it, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, it really is amazing. What comes to my mind, or what's been coming to my mind in us having this conversation, is you don't know what you have until it's gone. We didn't, talking about the technology, right? Sometimes we take it for granted that we could just pick up our phone and, I'm going somewhere, or I'm lost, and I'm like, oh, well, I'll just, use my GPS on my phone to figure out where to go. What did we do? We didn't have that. Or like, you get to be in places where you get to be with people. And maybe before we did take that for granted a bit, and it wasn't, it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm in a room with other people and it's whatever. But now there's a different energy about that. Or it's just because now we've been without it. And so we know the difference of like when we're not able to get that human connection. And now, I don't know, I wonder if that really makes it, though I think it's super powerful, any kind of event that we attend with other people and that like-minded energy and just the excitement and, learning new things, all of fun stuff that comes with that. But I wonder if we feel that even more so now, like coming from pandemic fun, that this is different, that there's a different energy about this. Because I know I feel that way. I know that I've noticed a difference because a lot of the work that I do and a lot of work that I've always done has been virtual, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, like all of the things. I have some in-person stuff that I do, and there is a different, there's a different energy with that. And I don't know if it's, I don't know what that is. Like there's something different. There's something different about being in person. That's really special.
Yeah, what comes to mind for me as we were having this conversation is also gratitude, that during the pandemic, we really all, I think, went into the space of, oh yeah, real connection, like being in the same room connection is very precious. And as we are transitioning back to both is possible, and there's so much more online options now due to the pandemic, also being grateful that we have all these opportunities now, that there was a time where there could have been a pandemic without the internet, so to say, and there have been, right? But I'm just saying, like, imagine that this pandemic would have taken place like way earlier in our lives. It would have been a very different experience. And knowing that we could still do so much during this time, I think that's what I'm just feeling right now, gratitude. And even though it was hard, it was still really, really hard. And that we now, I guess, can make more conscious decisions about what we want. Like Tyler said, going to a conference and it really helped you, or to a workshop and really helped you seeing, oh gosh, yeah, this feels so good. And I want more of that now. I'm guessing this is what you're taking away from this. Like, oh yeah, I want more of, this in-person stuff again. And yeah, that we get to be just grateful that we have all these options, and we get to explore, and we can just dive in again. And whether we want online or offline, like we can choose again. That's so precious.
It's also that energy of being in the same room with, as Amanda was saying, like the like-minded brains. Because I realized, I was like, holy moly, I need more of this in my life. Like the stimulating conversation, it wasn't even networking. It was about like, let's have a deep conversation about this, or I felt like for 2 days it was like the three of us were hanging out, for 2 days straight. Every person I talked to had that. They thought very similar. They had bigger goals and ambitions, and it was so weird. I was like doing some reflection after the event, and I was like, I am not in my social circle back in Texas. Like, I am not hanging out with these types of people, And so there's a lack of fulfillment happening. There's like a void. And actually, I had dinner last night with one of my clients who I've coached virtually. We've never met in real life, and so that was really fun to like hug her and then have dinner and like be across the table from each other. And she reiterated the same thing. She's growth-minded. She's very much into personal development and things like that. And she goes, I have no friends in real life that match like the type of energy that we're bringing to the table today. And we've talked about that here before. And I think it's so interesting that it takes having to go to a conference to pull those minds together, to pull that synergy together. And it's like, I guess my question is, why do you think it's so hard in our everyday life to find like-minded minds?
Great
What a
question.
brilliant question, Tyler. Wow.
The first thing that comes to mind for me is that I think we're in our idea of like connection and conversation, we often talk very surface level, right? And maybe this is like from fear of judgment, possibly, maybe, I don't know. Right? That like maybe this person isn't going to agree with me. And if I say something that's like too outside of the box, that they're going to judge me. But my initial thoughts were like, maybe it's also that we're so used to in just conversation of like, oh, hey, how are you? Oh, I'm good. How are you? You know, like it's just, this is just our dialogue, and that like idea or that what we do here, it's, we skip that small talk, right? Like we skip the small talk. And that's definitely something for me that I really value in relationships is like, we don't have to talk about the weather or, you know, those things, because there's so much more richness to life. There's so much more to talk about, though the weather is quite an interesting topic actually. But it's, how do we have that conversation, right? It's not, there's surface level conversation, which to me is like that small talk. And then there's that deeper level of like true, authentic connection type of conversation, which I feel like is what we do here, is what we do with like-minded people. And yeah, I'm not sure, as I'm hearing myself, I'm like, I'm not sure if that's entirely answering your question. Why is it so difficult? But those are kind of my initial thoughts, and I'm curious what you guys think.
I still think this is a brilliant question. And it is, yeah, I'm also wondering why is that? I have the same question actually. And just thinking about like for how the three of us, for example, got together is also a great example of us just following our interests and what we're passionate about and being together in a room, whether virtually or in person, with other people who are sharing the same interest, and then connecting on that level. And I think for, you know, if you're looking for new connections, friendships, soulmateships, whatever you want to call it, then I think that's a great starting point. And maybe it's more about actually making the conscious effort to go to those places. Because I would say that, let's say I'm super happy with myself and I'm thinking, okay, I really could use some new connections. Like I really want to connect with new people. I wouldn't sit there and just wait for them to come to me. I mean, maybe that's part of it. It's like, oh yeah, I feel so good with myself. And, you know, people are just catching up on that energy and they are all going to come to me, right? I think that's when you're trying to make new connections via the internet space, that's really hard. No one is going to randomly message you and say, hey, do you want to be my new best friend? That's not happening. So I'd say consciously making an effort. And maybe we are not really honest with ourselves how much of an effort we are actually making. So I would say if you're really longing for new connections, then it's up to you to, and I'm not just talking about you, Tyler, I'm talking, you know, generally, it's up to you to go out there and then bring that energy that you have and then see who you're meeting. I think there's probably so much more to that, but that would be my first thought on that question.
Well, I think you two brought a lot to that big question. With Amanda being like, you know, most conversations are surface level, and then Stephanie bringing in the point of you have to consciously make a choice to say, hey, I'm going to go out for those types of people. I'm going to go find more of that, because the last like Tuesday and Wednesday when I was at that workshop, I was like, I was like, I want to do this every day of my life. Like, if I could wake up and go to workshops and like interact with people, that would be phenomenal. But it does require you actually going to a specific, like putting in that conscious effort. So I think that's huge in this bigger conversation, because this is like a big thing that I've been reflecting on a lot recently about friendships, is like, we get to choose our friends. We get to actually handpick who we spend our time with. And I think sometimes we fall into that pattern of, oh, we just gravitate to the people who are like right immediately around us, and then we get kind of stuck in this. And that's kind of what I've been reflecting on recently, is like, you just kind of get stuck in a circle, whether it's your mom group or whether it's like old friends, whatever it is. It's like you just get stuck.
There's like a comfort level, I guess, right? You get comfortable in the groups that you're in or the people that you hang out with or something. Or I also too am thinking about the difference in, as adults, almost it feels like it's more difficult to make friends. Like, I'm thinking of this, I'm imagining like, kids on a playground, like, oh, you have a pink purse, I have a pink purse, we're best friends. Like, it's just like, that's what the friendships are built on. Like, that's the foundation of like, oh, your favorite color is pink, my favorite color is pink. And so now we're like best friends. Or how, open and curious kids are to just talking to each other. And when I step back and I just observe adults in environments, everyone's kind of to themselves. Or, I think of Starbucks as a perfect example, right? Everyone's sitting there waiting for their coffees, and then everyone's staring at their phone. Like, I mean, there's somebody right beside you. Like, maybe that's your new best friend. Who knows? Like, maybe they like mocha just as much as you do, like, half sweet, extra foam. Like, who knows, right? But I think that like we don't. I don't know if it's. I'm like trying to find the words to describe this like open curiosity that kids have, right? That they'll talk to anyone. Anyone's their best friend. Whereas as adults, I feel like we're a little bit more like, okay, like, I'm not just gonna go talk to some random stranger and ask them to be my friend. Like, there's something different that happens there. Yeah, Tyler, please.
I'm raising my hand.
Yeah.
School. I'm like, oh, God.
Jump in.
As you were talking about, you made that point about kids and how it's like, oh, I have a pink purse, you have a pink purse, we're now best friends. That's so simple. And then I think as I was thinking about this, as we become adults and we start to build out our beliefs and we start to build out our values and we start to become very multi-layered, it becomes more challenging to find like, okay, who matches these layers? Who matches this list now? And again, I was having this conversation with my client, and we were talking about this over dinner last night, which is, I guess it's still very fresh on my mind and still really deeply thinking about this today, apparently. But, we were just talking about how, sometimes like you're playing up here and the relationships around you are like down here. And so there's a big gap. It's like I don't really have anything to, I'm talking up here and you're talking down here. And it's a big gap to fill. Because again, like some of those values, some of those beliefs, some of those things that you look for aren't checked off. And it's almost like a score. Like, I wish we could have like a scorecard for relationships.
Ooh, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting. And I think a big piece of that is like, when I walk away from this, right, from the interactions with this person, how do I feel? Because I think that's a big part of it. And like you're saying, the experience that you're having after this workshop, right? Like you're energized, you're joyful, you're excited. And those are the things that I think we need to be looking for in relationships. And I do agree that, our beliefs change or our values are different. And this is where, staying in those groups for like, well, I've been friends with them since, we were toddlers or we went to high school together. And sometimes you do grow together and sometimes we grow in different directions. And I think that's kind of what you were mentioning, Tyler, this like, what different levels you're at. And I don't think that means, that we're above or better than anyone, right? It's just there's different levels of thinking or of awareness, or even just, whether that's, I think especially actually in self-awareness, right? In really being aware of ourselves. And in this world of personal development, I'll speak from personal experience, I find sometimes a disconnect with friends or people in my life where I'm talking about something and it's very coachy and they've done no personal development work. And so like, they're looking at me like I have 3 heads and they think it's crazy what I'm saying. They're like, it just doesn't make sense to them. And not that all our journeys are different and everyone is at a different place in their journey. Not that, with the friends that we have, they have to all be at the same, place in their journey, because we all are different. However, I believe that it's maybe more of an energetic match. I'm going to add that to the conversation. I want to say there's like a different like energy that comes with these types of connections. And I think this is where I'm getting to, how do you feel after you're with this person? Like what are you feeling? Because that holds more value to me in relationships.
Yeah, I think also that the way we feel or the energy, if we are an energetic match with someone else, says so much more than a checklist. I mean, it's great to like put yourselves, like you did, Tyler, right? You put yourselves in a room with 150 other people who are inspired and aspiring to be speakers or be successful speakers. And that already, I guess, is a big match on this, I guess, cosmic list. And it sets you up for success in the area of, okay, are we an energetic match or not? Right? Like this is that you have a higher potential of connecting deeply with some people in this room versus sitting in a room with 150 people who want to pursue a career in real estate, for example, right? And so I think that's like a great first step. So something I wanted to mention with this whole like, oh, why don't we all walk around and say like, oh, you have a pink purse too, like kids? What came up for me there was actually the feeling of shame that as adults, like let's say you were at a coffee shop and you have someone sitting next to you, it's the person is like, most people are not even like energetically available. They don't put their energy out there, sit there and drink their beverage and kind of give off a vibe of, hey, I'm open for connection. You know what I'm saying? Like this is something I, as a highly sensitive person, I can pick this up. When I go into a room, I can sense the energy. I can sense like, oh, are people like anxious? Are people happy? Are they excited? What's going on? And especially coffee shops, the energy is not there. Everyone is either sitting at their laptops or on their phones. So even if you were to go out there into the world and be really brave, I think it's super brave to sit yourself in a coffee shop and just drink your coffee. Don't take out your phone to hide your insecurity, and just really see, okay, is there someone that might be interested in connecting or having a conversation or something like that? Like that, I'd say takes a lot of courage, at least for me. I'm introverted. Like we're all introverted here. Like for me to go to a coffee shop and talk to real strangers, like put that on a list of my nightmares. And it would take me a lot of courage, to do something like this. And so I don't know, the sensation of shame came up for me, that we are afraid and to go out there and be vulnerable. I think this is really being vulnerable if we go up to another person, or we just make like eye contact with someone without wanting to come up as like flirty or like, can I get your number, right? I think that's like really, really hard. And so that came up for me, like this, like we're ashamed, right? We're ashamed to say, oh, you have a pink purse too, or oh, what a curious coincidence, like I had the exact same super difficult coffee order. and to just initiate that conversation, that's
I think for me, that's where I was saying before, I was like the judgment. I think like the shame, the judgment. I think that's, it plays a big part in it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, the piece about the energy of like, you can feel a person that you're talking to. I mean, going into a room of like very high intense 150 professionals who are there for personal development and wanting to grow, like it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of but it was like I connected with lots of people, but I connected with only a few. You know what I mean? Like, I had casual conversation with lots of people. I only made energetic connections with maybe 5, and it was like, and those were the people that I could go sit down and we could have a 2-hour long conversation. And like, I have no idea who they are. Like, I don't know if they have, and there was no small talk involved. It was never like, oh, do you have siblings? What's your favorite color? We just immediately like jumped right in, and that's the difference. Like, I think conversation is easy, but good conversation is hard to find.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate. I would definitely agree. And I think that's what got us so excited, even just about this podcast, about this project, was that like we get to have those meaningful conversations and then share them with the world. But how powerful it really can be to have a real deep, honest, raw, authentic, whatever words you want to give to it, that type of conversation almost feels a little, it's a little disheartening, actually, that more people don't have that. And I mean, it doesn't, I mean, for us, personal development is something that we can like jam to anytime, but it doesn't even have to, like, that doesn't even have to be the topic, right? Like, it could be dogs. It could be like, I don't know, art. It could be so many different topics, right? But when you find those people who you can have those deep conversations with, where it almost feels like the other person is finishing your sentence, or they know what you're thinking before you're even thinking it, or those kinds of things. I think that is the beauty. That is those special connections, those special relationships that we get to have with other people. And when we can feel that strong connection, and when we can appreciate it, going back to the gratitude, when we can really appreciate that that's an opportunity to connect with somebody on a deeper level. And I mean, this doesn't even have to be like, it doesn't have to be in a relation, like it can be completely platonic. Like, it doesn't have to be, that, oh, now we're, it has to be a dating thing. Like, that's not the point, right? Like, it can literally just be friendship, or I don't know. There's just something about having people in your life that there's certain things that you don't even have to say or explain, and you just know they get it. I'm sure there's probably better ways, or better words to describe that, but that's what comes to my mind. Like, because I'm so fortunate and I'm truly so grateful to have so many of those people in my life that the conversation is just effortless, and there is this mutual understanding that's actually almost very rarely even spoken about. There's like those unspoken things between you and someone in these types of relationships or conversations that is so interesting to me. Like, without saying words, you can say a whole lot.
I want to come back to something that you mentioned, Tyler, before, with the layers, that we all have layers, and as we grow older and we become adults, that there's more nuances to our personality. And I was just thinking that probably when you're meeting someone that you don't have this kind of energetic match with, that it's not a great fit, so to say, it would be from a purely like feeling point of view really hard to open up to this person and show them the deeper layers. This, like, I'm just imagining conversations that I've had in the past with people where I knew immediately, and not from a place of judgment, just from a place of, can we connect here? Can I have this conversation with, can I have this connection with you, where the energy just didn't match. So it would be really hard for me to open up and be vulnerable and allow more of the deeper layers for me to show in the conversation. Whereas I think, coming back to the topic of just how it feels when you're talking to someone, when I'm an energetic match with someone, it's effortless. It's like you just want to show them all the layers, not in a oversharing sense, just in a like, you're so excited and you feel their energy, and they are also so open and vulnerable and honest and authentic to share their layers with you, that it feels, effortless, I think is a really good word here. And then those deeper soulful conversations and connections are happening.
I do find, as we're kind of talking about these deeper conversations, like, passion and purpose takes you a long way in these conversations. When you feel like you have a purpose, when you feel like you have a passion, there's an energy to get you up every morning, to get you going. You're excited to share about that. And that's what I witnessed over the last 2 days, was like everyone, whether we meshed or not. There was, thinking of one particular conversation I had where they were speaking and they were telling them, they were sharing about themselves, and I was like, it got real political, and I was like, politically, we're not aligning on this, and I need to step away because it's triggering me. But they were passionate. They had a purpose, and I was like, well, that's it. That's good. That's good that you have passion and you have purpose. And I think that is so key to having more enriching conversations, is when you are clear on, what am I passionate about? What is my purpose here on earth? That's what opens the door to those bigger conversations. Again, whether or not I ended up being like, wow, that totally goes against everything that I believe in and whatnot, and I realized like that's not a good match, it still went below the surface, and we started to have some heart in those conversations. And I think those two, passion and purpose, are so important when you're looking to find that deeper connection with somebody. It's like they clearly know who they are, they clearly know their passion, they clearly know that they have a purpose. And that's what I was like magnetically attracted to. And it was so affirming in a way, because I was like, yes, I have passion, I have purpose, I know what I'm doing. And it was a really good kind of like, it was almost like a confirmation. It was like, yep, Tyler, You're good. You're good.
And I think you highlighted something really good there too, Tyler, in that sometimes we need to meet those people who don't align with us to let us know those people that we do align with so that we can see the difference, right? For me, this is something that has always been since a really young age. I've always been very selective on the people. I've always had a lot of acquaintances and friends. Like I could get along with anyone and hang out in any like social circles, whatever, any groups, it didn't matter. But when it came to who I called my friends, who were in like my circle, who I was the most honest and open and vulnerable with, it was always a very small group of people. And I think for me, recognizing, and maybe at the time I probably most likely definitely didn't have the language to understand what was happening or to know, like, but there was something about the conversation, the person, or just how I felt when I was around that person that let me know that, oh, that's not one of those people that you would call like your inner circle, would be like your close friends, right? And so I figured that out fairly early, and so I always was very selective in who I would hang around with on a regular basis. And then as soon as, because as kids, I mean, especially as we're growing in teenage years, like the layers start building and things start shifting and changing, and the things that people get into or the choices that they make, maybe they don't align with me anymore, right? And I was always really clear about those things for myself. And once I saw that a friendship was going in a certain direction, or I saw that person was making certain choices that I didn't necessarily agree with, or I didn't want to participate in those activities that they were doing, then I just distanced myself and I moved on and I found my other people. And it wasn't until those moments that I realized that all friendships, all relationships, all connections don't always last a whole lifetime. Some do, but not all do. And when we can recognize how we feel in those situations, in those conversations, then we only need to make the decision for ourselves, if that makes sense. And I just, I don't know. I think there's a big, a big thing to keep in mind, that how we are in connections with people, and that maybe they won't all be good, and if some of them are not, then it's okay to exit. It's okay to move on to another conversation. It's okay to move on to, in a friendship, like any other relationship, if it's no longer the energetic match, as we've kind of called it here today. And that's totally okay.
Yeah, and I think that's not easy, but definitely necessary, because we don't want to lie to ourselves and just like, oh no, I've been with this friend for 20 years and I should keep the relationship going or the friendship going. In those moments, it doesn't mean that when a friendship is ending that it wasn't worth having the friendship in the first place. It just means, like you said, Amanda, it's just no longer this match. And then we get to let go, also then for the other person, and also for us to then move on and have space to put our energy into a new kind of relationship, and also for the other person to do the same.
It really doesn't have to be complicated. I'm just like sitting here thinking about this, and like, it really doesn't have to be complicated. You know, we're like our worst, like we're like our own worst enemies when it comes to like just go say hi to somebody, just go approach somebody, like engage with somebody, because what I realized is that we all want connection, we all need connection, and when we're sitting here like this all the time, like we're stopping ourselves from being able to connect. And it's like wouldn't it be beautiful if like we were just more courageous, like we had more courageous conversations, like how much more enriching would your life be if you just allowed yourself to go spark the conversation, to go say hi to the random person at the Starbucks.
Well, Tyler, since you were there, let us know.
It's funny that you say that, because actually in one of my coaching programs, there's an exercise that we do, and it's like, it's encouraging this, right? And so we actually look at finding a question. So whether that's like, what is your passion? Or, like those deep thought-provoking type of questions. And we ask it to we ask the same question to someone we love. We ask the question to maybe like an acquaintance, right? And then we ask it to a stranger. So 3 people, the same question. And then we have visitors. I love it. Oh, come as we are in real time. For anyone who's just listening to us, Tyler is at Starbucks and has someone who's entering his video. But anyway, so as I was saying, you take the same question and you ask it to those 3 different people, and you see what answers you get. And it's really interesting, and also gets you out of that comfort zone and gets you talking to strangers. And it's so interesting because so many people, when they come back after they've done the exercise, and they'll say, it's amazing what it was like with a stranger. Because most people kind of look at them like, what kind of a question is that? Like, normally people are like, well, how are you? Right? Like, you see a stranger, and I know I'm guilty of this all the time. Anytime I'm talking to someone, I get on the phone, or like I'm calling, bringing back the phone provider, like any one of those people, well, as soon as they pick up the phone, I'm like, oh, hey, how are you? And I know that I'm probably going to get the generic, oh, I'm good. So I don't know why I ask it, but I do, because it's just I'm so natural in the conversation. I'm at the cashier and I'm like, oh, hi, how are you? And 9 times out of 10, it's like, oh, I'm good. Like, you don't usually get much else other than that, but sometimes it sparks a conversation, and I feel like it's just my personality, and like, well, I'm just friendly, right? So to me, that's friendly. But in asking someone, like, can you imagine some random stranger just comes up to you and be like, so what are you passionate about? It's very jarring. It's very, right? Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm good. How are you? Like, you would just like automatically, right? Like, default to saying that. And it's like, wait a minute, that's not what you said. And actually gets you to pause and think, and gets the stranger to pause and really think, oh, I don't know what my passion is, or here's a story about my passion, or I don't know. I feel like in this conversation, it's kind of an interesting thought, right? As we think about talking to strangers and being courageous. So that's kind of interesting that we would even consider that courageous to talk to a stranger, right? Like, what's the worst that could happen? But our minds go through all these ideas of that shame, the judgment, maybe they won't like me, or maybe they'll say something, really mean, but maybe they won't. What if they were really kind? And what if maybe they were having a really rough day, and you just talking to them made their day brighter? What if?
That's a beautiful, finishing thought here as we are wrapping up. what is the potential, right? Rather than worrying about like the worst scenario outcome, which honestly almost never happens. What's like the best scenario outcome, right? What if this person is like really just smiling and super grateful, and you're just making their day by saying hi or asking them, hey, what are you passionate? I feel like this needs to be a movement, right? Switching this like social component of hi, how are you, to hi, what are you passionate about today? Imagine like everyone would just like switch the question from the former to the latter. Like that would be, I don't know, we would have a lot more conversations in our daily lives, right?
Yeah. So as we were discussing this, I ended up writing. Well, one, I said, okay, I'm going to start a courageous conversation exercise where you do go have the courageous conversation with somebody and you flip the script. And then I was thinking, okay, what question would I ask them? Which, I mean, the purpose and the passion question, that's a good one. But I wrote down, and I would love to know if you guys have one. I'm going to put you all on the spot. I wrote, if I was to go ask just a random stranger what their, a question, I would ask them, what is your life's mission? That would be my question. Do y'all have a question? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
A question for a random stranger. I need to think for a minute. Amanda, do you have something? Our brains are working, Tyler. We're working hard.
Yeah, the wheels are turning. The smoke. I'm trying to think of, to me, I like the idea of asking. I like the mission. I really like passion and mission. There's but there's something different. There's another layer that what is your mission that brings, I think. But usually in this exercise, the example that I usually use is, what are you passionate about? What is your passion?
Something that I can also imagine because you don't know if this is someone that's also crazy about self-development, and it's like any person, right? Mm-hmm. And so something that might be a little less intense for a first question could be like, what's your favorite hobby that you're doing right now? Like,
okay, yeah.
I think that's a bit that's like warming up to the question of mission and purpose.
We're just like, let's go for the jugular, straight for the jugular. Like, what is your mission in life? And hopefully most people would be like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Actually, something that was just coming to my mind was like, if you could meet anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
That's a cool one.
Okay. So, Stephanie, I love that you went to hobbies, because again, Tyler goes like, what's your life mission? Because that's just naturally where I go. But I was also thinking, like another good one would be around creativity. Like, how do you express yourself creatively? Because again, whether it's cooking, writing, drawing, coloring in a coloring book, like those are all creative expressions that I don't think we sometimes think about them as creativity. Anyway, tons of questions. I'm gonna have to now take a minute to write down, conversation starters here, but it's a good. I don't know. I don't really have an ending today. Usually I don't know. Wrap it up. I don't know.
I can do a rappy. What I'm just so grateful for is that you mentioned this, Tyler, of being in a room and feeling all this energy from people who are driven in there, and then asking this question, why is it so hard? For me, what I'm now taking away from this is, it does. I was giving this as an advice before, and obviously the person that needs it most is me. Just knowing that it does take a conscious effort to make those connections. It's not just, yes, there's this part where we get to work on ourselves and become the energetic match that we're seeking. But then also it's a bit more than that. It's like really going out there, and it doesn't have to be a hustle. It can be a joyful process to then finding those rooms where we match energetically with other people. So I'm just gonna like take this with me as, again, my piece of advice for myself, to make a bit of a conscious effort in the near future to find one or two of those rooms, and also have those juicy connections with other people who energetically match with me. Yeah. So that's what I'm taking away. Amanda, what are you taking away from today?
Well, everything you just said. And I would add, it doesn't have to be complicated. I love that we mentioned that, right? It doesn't have to be complicated. We overcomplicate everything. It really doesn't have to be that complicated. And if you meet someone who's not an energetic match, next. That's okay. Like, not a big deal. It's just next, you know? So that's what I want to leave with today. And I think I want to challenge myself and challenge anyone who's listening to do that. Ask a stranger a random one of those questions, right? Like, find a question that feels good for you, whether it's their mission, their passion, their hobbies, like a person that they'd love to have dinner with, like what is the question, and ask it to a stranger. And if that feels maybe too big and scary, then challenge yourself to maybe just smile at a stranger, someone you see and you're walking by, and just smile at them.
I have my wrap up. I got
it. Okay, give it to us.
So Preston Smile, he says, ABC, always be celebrating, which I use that all the time, and I love that quote from him. I'm going to add another C when it comes to conversations. ABC, always be curious. Be curious. Ask the curious question. Ask the curious question. That's it for me.
Love it. What a great addition to this conversation. What a great conversation just in general, as always. But I appreciate you all, and that we have these beautiful connections here between the three of us is so special, and I'm truly so grateful for it. So thank you both for being who you are and always being curious and just showing up, coming as we are. I think today was that beautiful example of what that's all about. So just want to thank you all so much for watching, for listening. Please follow along on our journey. We appreciate you all as well. Sending you all so much love. Thanks for being here, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. You can follow the show on Instagram at Kaya the Podcast, and on YouTube and Facebook by searching Kaya the Podcast. If you haven't already done so, please help us keep the conversations going by subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And be sure to join us next time for another deep conversation.